My name is Alina March, and I was 35 years old when my ex-husband looked at my daughter at my sister's wedding and said no man would ever raise another man's baggage. He said it beside the White Rose Arch, 10 minutes before my little girl was supposed to walk down the aisle as flower girl. My daughter Iris was 9 years old, holding a basket of petals with both hands, wearing a pale green dress my sister had chosen because it matched the eucalyptus in the bouquets. She had spent 3 weeks practicing the words, "Congratulations, Aunt Maeve," because speech had never come easily to her. My ex, Trent Archer, stood there in a charcoal suit with his new girlfriend beside him, smiling like cruelty was just confidence with better shoes. "Still dragging that kid around," he said quietly. "No man is going to build a life around another man's baggage." Before I could answer, Iris's basket handle snapped. Petals spilled across the stone path. My daughter did not look at Trent. She ran past him, straight to the quiet man standing beside me, and said, clear as a bell, "Dad, my basket broke." Trent stopped smiling, because Wesley Quinn was not rich, he was not flashy, he was not a revenge fantasy. He was the man who had shown up for speech therapy, school meetings, night terrors, hospital follow-ups, and every hard morning after Trent walked out. And what Trent did not know was that in my purse, behind the tissues and the emergency hairpins, I had the blue therapy binder, the unpaid support ledger, and the sealed wedding program proof my daughter had helped design. By the end of the reception, in front of my parents, my sister, the groom's family, and every person who had mistaken silence for weakness, the room would understand exactly who had abandoned my child and who had earned the name Dad. Before I tell you what happened next, welcome back to Hush and Tell Stories. If you have ever watched someone reject a child and then resent the person who loved them properly, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments whether a parent is made by blood, by papers, or by showing up. And if this kind of quiet truth speaks to you, stay with me. I grew up in Lake Afton, Oregon, a town tucked between pine-covered hills and a cold blue lake where everyone knew who owned which truck, whose son got into trouble after prom, and which mothers could make an entire bake sale feel like a courtroom. My younger sister, Maeve, was 3 years behind me and always somehow in the center of whatever light came into our house. She was warm, funny, disorganized, beautiful, and fragile in exactly the way my mother knew how to protect. If Maeve lost a permission slip, I was asked to print another. If Maeve forgot a payment deadline, Dad said she had a lot going on. If Maeve cried, Mom softened. If I cried, Mom asked me not to upset my sister. I became the practical daughter before I had words for it. Practical meant I helped Dad alphabetize tax files in March while Maeve went to sleepovers. Practical meant I drove Maeve to dance because Mom had a migraine. Practical meant when the family refrigerator died the summer after my freshman year of college, I sent $600 from my campus job and listened to Mom say, "Your sister would help too if she were in your position." I was always in the position. That was the trick. We married when I was 28, in a courthouse ceremony followed by dinner at a restaurant with river views. My mother called it simple, which in her voice meant less than what she wanted. But Trent said we would have a bigger celebration later when money was better, and I believed him because believing someone you love is not stupidity. It is hope doing its job before evidence arrives. One night, when Iris was 3 weeks old and I was pumping milk in the hospital lactation room with my C-section incision burning under my waistband, Trent came in holding a financial responsibility estimate. "This is insane," he said. I looked at the paper. It is insurance language. It does not mean we owe all of it. It means she is going to ruin everything before she even comes home. The pump kept making its soft mechanical sound. I remember that because grief sometimes attaches itself to the smallest noise. "Do not say that about our daughter." He rubbed his forehead. "You know what I mean." "No, I know what you said." He apologized later, sort of. He said he was tired. He said I was sensitive. He said the hospital was turning us into different people. But some sentences do not disappear, because the person who said them regrets the timing. Iris came home on a rainy Thursday with a car seat that looked too big, oxygen tubing we thankfully did not need for long, and a binder full of discharge instructions. I placed the binder on our kitchen counter and labeled it because that was how I kept myself from falling apart. Appointments, medications, insurance, therapy, bills, Trent saw tea. He labels and said, "You are making our baby into a project." I said, "No, I am making sure she survives." For a while, survival was enough to hold us together. Then Iris grew, slowly, carefully, beautifully. She had deep brown eyes, curls that stood up no matter what I did, and a smile that arrived with her whole body. She loved ceiling fans, cardboard boxes, water sounds, and the yellow duck I kept in the diaper bag. She hit some milestones late and some in her own order. She crawled backward before she crawled forward. She hated shoes. She could stack blocks with fierce concentration, but did not speak the way other toddlers did. At 18 months, she said, "Mama." At 22 months, she said, "Up." Then the word stalled. The pediatrician used the phrase expressive language delay. Later came childhood apraxia of speech as a possibility, then speech motor planning difficulties, then sensory processing concerns, then evaluations, referrals, and a new binder. I cried in the parking lot after the first assessment, not because I loved her less, but because I understood how hard the world could be to children who had to fight to be understood. Trent did not come to the assessment. He had a client lunch. That was what he said. I found out later he had gone golfing with his regional manager. By the time Iris turned 2, our marriage was a house with all the lights on and no one home. Trent hated the therapy schedule. He hated that insurance did not cover everything. He hated that I corrected people when they spoke about Iris as if she could not understand. He hated that I no longer laughed at his jokes when the joke was about how much easier life would be if our daughter came with a mute button. Then one Thursday evening in November, Iris had a meltdown because the blender was too loud and she could not make her body say what she wanted. She was on the kitchen floor, hands over her ears, crying so hard she could not breathe right. I sat beside her, turned off the blender, and hummed the song that helped her settle. Trent stood in the doorway with his coat on. "I cannot do this anymore," he said. I looked up. "She is too. I mean all of it." Iris sobbed against my chest. "Trent," he looked at our daughter like she was a bill he had not agreed to pay. "I am not built to raise someone else's problems." "Someone else's, you know what I mean." Again with that sentence. No, I did not know what he meant. Or maybe I did, and that was worse. "She is your child." He looked away. I did not sign up for this version. There are moments when love does not fade. It snaps. He left that night with a duffel bag and 2 suits. Iris fell asleep on the floor beside me because I could not move for almost an hour. The next morning, I found his wedding ring on the bathroom counter. No note, just metal, cold and small. My mother came over that afternoon. She folded baby clothes while I sat at the table with Iris's therapy schedule in front of me. "I am not saying Trent handled it perfectly," she said. That was how she started. Not "I am sorry." Not "how can I help." "I am not saying." Which meant she was about to say. But men sometimes need time to adjust when life turns out differently than expected. I looked at her. "Are you defending him?" "I am trying to keep you from making permanent decisions while emotional." Trent walked out, and you have always had a way of making hard things harder. I still remember the way the afternoon light hit the kitchen floor when she said that. Hard things harder. My child was in speech therapy, my husband had left, and my mother managed to make my pain sound like poor manners. Dad was kinder but quiet. He brought groceries. He paid one therapy bill without telling Mom. He held Iris while she pulled his glasses off and laughed silently. But when Mom said Trent might come around, Dad said, "Maybe," because maybe was the easiest place for him to stand. Maeve was the only one who said the right thing at first. "Screw him," she said, sitting on my couch with Iris asleep between us. "Maeve." "No, I mean it. Screw him all the way to Idaho." I laughed for the first time in days. Maeve was messy, but she loved Iris. She brought books, glitter stickers, and a stuffed fox bigger than my child. She did not always understand speech therapy, but she tried. She learned to wait for Iris to answer. She learned not to say, "Use your words," because sometimes the words were trapped. She clapped when Iris made a new sound and cried in the bathroom so Iris would not see. That is why her wedding hurt later. Because Maeve knew, she had seen us before the pretty parts returned. Child support was ordered. He paid when payroll garnishment caught him and disappeared when he changed jobs. He argued about therapy costs. He called speech appointments optional. He said I was turning Iris into a diagnosis for sympathy. So I kept records. Court order, payment led. Juror, therapy invoices, missed visitation calendar, emails, voicemails, texts. The blue binder grew thick. People think documentation is cold until they are standing in front of a person who lies warmly. When Iris was 3, she met Wesley Quinn. He was not ours at first. He was the speech-language pathologist assigned through the county early intervention program after our first provider moved. He wore plain button-down shirts, carried a canvas bag full of picture cards and toys, and had the calmest hands I had ever seen. Some adults fill a room with the need to be liked. Wesley filled it with patience. He never rushed Iris. He never demanded eye contact. He never said, "Come on, use your words," like speech was a vending machine. He got on the floor, he waited, he offered choices. He celebrated attempts. He taught me how to model words without pressure, how to use visual supports, how to turn frustration into communication instead of performance. The first time Iris said more, while reaching for bubbles, Wesley smiled like she had recited Shakespeare. "That was work," he said gently. "Good work, Iris." I cried after he left. Not because I was in love with him, I was not then. Because I had forgotten what it felt like to have another adult look at my daughter and see effort instead of inconvenience. Wesley worked with Iris for almost a year before she aged out of that early program. He helped transition us to private therapy and school-based supports. Then he disappeared from our lives in the natural way providers do when services end. 2 years later, I saw him again at a literacy fundraiser at the public library. Iris was 5 then, wearing purple headphones and carrying a picture book about planets. Wesley was at a table for a children's communication nonprofit, demonstrating visual schedules to parents. Iris saw him before I did. She ran straight to him and said, "Bubba." She meant Bubbles, he remembered. His face softened. "Miss Iris," he said, "you got so tall." She beamed. Something changed that day. Not quickly. Not in a lightning strike, more like a door opening somewhere down a quiet hallway. We became friendly, then friends. Then, slowly, after boundaries had long been clear and he was no longer her provider, something else. I asked questions. He answered carefully. We waited. We moved like adults with a child at the center, not adults using a child as an excuse. Wesley was steady in ways that did not announce themselves. He worked at a pediatric clinic in Bend, rented a small house with too many books, made excellent pancakes, and forgot to replace his own socks until they were nearly transparent. He drove an old gray Subaru. He did not try to become Iris's father. He became a person who kept showing up until the word found him honestly. He came to school meetings because I asked if he could help me understand the language goals. He fixed Iris's bedroom shelf because it leaned. He learned which textures made her gag and which songs helped her reset. He sat in the hallway with her during a birthday party when the noise became too much. He taught her to say, "I need a break," and treated those words like a doorbell, not defiance. When she was 7, Iris brought him a Father's Day card from school. It said, "To Wesley, because you help me talk and you listen when I don't." He cried at my kitchen table with one hand over his eyes. Iris patted his sleeve. "Happy sad?" she asked. He laughed through tears. "Yes, sweetheart, happy sad." She called him Wesley for years. Then one rainy Tuesday after a dental appointment, we stopped for soup. The restaurant was crowded and loud, and a server dropped a tray. Iris startled, knocked over her water, and began to panic. Wesley crouched beside her chair and said, "I'm here, one thing at a time." She looked at him and said, "Dad, can we go?" The word landed on the table. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just true. Wesley looked at me first, because good men understand that beautiful moments can still be complicated. I nodded, crying before I could stop it. He said, "Yes, we can go." That night, after Iris fell asleep, he asked me whether I was okay with it. "She chose it," I said. "I do not want to take something that isn't mine." "You did not take it, you carried what someone else dropped." He looked away. "That makes me angry sometimes." Me too. Trent did not know about the wedding until later. He had not seen Iris in 11 months. When he found out through a cousin, he texted, "Nice. You finally found someone desperate enough to play stepdad." I saved it, of course I did. When she asked Iris to be flower girl, Iris rehearsed the answer for 2 days. "Yes, Aunt Maeve, I will do it." She said it perfectly on the phone. Maeve sobbed so hard Iris looked at me in concern. "She happy sad," Iris whispered. "Very happy sad," she called one night in April. "Alina, we need to discuss the wedding Seaton." "Jay." That sentence alone made my shoulders tense. "What about it? Maeve wants peace." "Peace with whom?" A pause. "Trent will be there." I set down the dish towel in my hand. "Why?" "Colin's cousin works with him. Apparently they have become friends." "Trent has not seen Iris in over a year." "That is between the two of you." "No, it is between him and the child he stopped calling." Mom sighed. "Please do not bring that tone to your sister's wedding." "Did Maeve know?" "She knows now." "Did she invite him?" "No, he is Colin's side. We cannot control every guest." That was not entirely true. Weddings control cake forks and chair colors. They can control a man who abandoned the flower girl if someone is willing to make a phone call. "What does Maeve say?" "She says she hopes everyone can be mature." There it was, mature. A word often handed to the person expected to absorb harm quietly. I called Maeve. She cried before I finished the question. "I didn't know at first," she said. "Colin's cousin invited him and his girlfriend because they all golf or something. By the time I found out, Mom said uninviting him would make more drama." "What do you say?" "I say I hate this." "Then uninvite him." Silence. "Maeve, I already told Mom I wanted to. She said it would look like I was choosing sides in your divorce." "Your niece is the flower girl." "I know, then choose." She cried harder. "I am trying." I wanted to be angry with her. I was angry with her. But I also heard the younger sister who had spent her whole life being rescued from discomfort by making someone else carry it. The next morning, Maeve called back. "I told Colin. He is going to talk to his cousin. But if Trent still comes, I want you to know I did not invite him. And I want Wesley seated with you and Iris in the front family row." That mattered, not everything, but something. Then Mom called. "Was it necessary to upset your sister?" "Yes, Alina. Mom, Trent called Iris baggage. He said a terrible thing years ago. He abandoned her for years after saying it." "People grow. Has he paid support?" Silence. "That is not the measure of a father." "No, showing up is. He has failed both measures." Mom lowered her voice. "I know you are protective, but if you make a scene, you will be remembered that way." I looked across the kitchen at Iris, who was drawing tiny flowers around the wedding program draft. Wesley stood behind her, helping her spell eucalyptus, because she had decided the word looked like a dinosaur. "I am not the one who should be worried about being remembered accurately," I said. The wedding invitations went out. Trent was still coming. So was his girlfriend, Aubrey Lane, a sleek woman with red hair, a white manicure, and an Instagram account full of motivational quotes about feminine energy and being chosen. I knew this because Maeve sent me her profile with the message, "I am so sorry," which is how sisters apologize when they are still letting the bad thing happen. "Mom," she said one night, "will Trent be there?" She rarely used the word dad for him. Mostly, she used his name because he had become a person in stories, not routines. Yes, I said, he might be. She thought about that. Do I have to hug? No. Do I have to talk? No. Do I have to call him Dad? My throat tightened. No, sweetheart, you call people what is true for you. She nodded. Okay. Wesley was quiet that night. After Iris went to bed, he stood at the sink washing a mug that was already clean. You know I can stay home, he said. I turned from the counter. Why would you stay home? If it makes things easier for Iris. No, it would make things easier for adults who do not deserve it. He dried the mug carefully. I don't want to be used as proof. You are not proof, you are family. He looked down. Sometimes steady people are the slowest to believe they are allowed a place at the table. I walked over and took the towel from his hands. Wesley, she is going to look for you when the music starts. Be where she can see you. He nodded. I can do that. That was Wesley, not I will show him. Not I will put him in his place. Just I can do that. Then a message came from Trent. Alina, this is Trent. I hear we will both be at Maeve's wedding. I think we should handle this like adults for Iris. I stared at the message while waiting in the school pickup line. Then another came from Aubrey. Aubrey and I believe it would be healthy for Iris to see her biological father included. Maybe we can take a few photos as a family so there is no confusion. A family. The same man who had missed 36 visitation weekends wanted photographs. I wrote back, you may greet Iris only if she wants that. No forced hugs, no photos, no private conversations. All communication goes through the parenting app or my attorney. He replied, still controlling everything. No wonder the kid has issues. I took a C. Reinshot. Then he sent, I am not paying $42,000 to be treated like a stranger. There it was, the number, not her name, not her needs. The bill, I replied. You are treated like a stranger because you behave like one. The arrears remain through the court. He did not answer for 4 hours. Then he sent a photo of a document. Mutual parenting, reset agreement. My hands went cold. I sent it to my attorney, Priya Desai, who had handled the last child support enforcement filing. Priya was direct, organized, and allergic to nonsense in a way I found medicinal. She called me that evening. Do not sign this. I was not planning to. Good, because this is not a parenting agreement. It is a reputation cleanup sheet with a debt waiver stapled to it. Can he use Iris's photo if he takes one at the wedding? Not for commercial or campaign purposes without consent, especially if there are existing custody and privacy orders. Personal wedding photos are different, but if he uses her story publicly, call me. Why would he use her story? Priya paused. You said he is attending with a girlfriend. Yes, who is she? Aubrey Lane, some wellness branding person. Send me the profile. I did. 10 minutes later, Priya texted. She is launching a family resilience podcast and nonprofit event series with Trent listed as sponsor. Of course she was. I opened Aubrey's page again and looked more closely. There it was in her bio. Founder of Gatherwell Families, Healing Generational Wounds, Real Stories, Real Homes, Real Hope. A post from that morning showed Trent in a linen shirt, holding a mug, captioned, Some men are brave enough to rebuild fatherhood from the ground up. Coming soon. My stomach turned. He did not want Iris. He wanted her story. He wanted the premature baby he had called a ruin, the speech-delayed toddler he abandoned, the child he had not carried through therapy, to become evidence that he had grown. He wanted her name and photo, without paying what he owed. I printed everything, Aubrey's page, the reset agreement, Trent's texts, the arrears statement, the therapy ledger, the blue binder, not because I planned to ruin Maeve's wedding. Because I knew my family. If I arrived empty-handed, someone would ask me to be gracious. If I arrived with records, at least grace would not be the only thing in the room. The rehearsal dinner was at a lakefront restaurant with cedar beams, round tables, and a sunset pretty enough to make people sentimental before they had earned it. Trent came, so did Aubrey. He looked older than I remembered and not in a humbled way. His hair was still thick, his smile still confident, his suit still chosen to say he understood fabric. Aubrey wore cream, though she was not the bride, and looked at Iris with the bright, pitying warmth of a woman meeting a prop she hoped would cooperate. "Elena," Trent said, as if we were old classmates. "Wesley," I said without looking away, "this is Trent Archer." Wesley shook his hand. "No squeeze contest, no stare down. Nice to meet you," Wesley said. Trent looked at him from shoes to face. "So you're the therapist?" "I was a speech-language pathologist in early intervention. I work in pediatric communication now." "Right, the therapist," Wesley smiled politely. Iris stood beside my leg, holding my hand. Her shoulders were tight. Trent crouched slightly. "Hey, kiddo," she leaned into me. He laughed awkwardly and stood. "Shy," Wesley said gently, "she is deciding." Trent's face flickered. Aubrey stepped in. "Hi, Iris, I have heard so much about you. Your dad is very excited to reconnect." Iris looked at her. "My dad is Wesley." The table nearest us went quiet. Aubrey blinked. Trent's smile froze. I touched Iris's shoulder, not to correct her, just to let her know I was there. Mom appeared instantly, because she had a gift for arriving after the wound, but before the witness could process it. "Why don't we all find our seats?" she said. At dinner, we were seated with Maeve's friends, far enough from Trent that I almost relaxed. Maeve came over twice to check on Iris. Colin brought her lemonade with no ice because Maeve had told him she hated ice clinking in cups. That small detail made me like him more. Then, near dessert, Mom appeared with a folded paper. "Elena, could I speak with you for just a moment?" "No," she looked startled. "We are at a public table." "Then speak publicly." Her mouth tightened. She placed the paper beside my plate. It was the reset agreement. My body went still. "Trent gave this to me," she said softly. "He is trying." Wesley put down his fork. I said, "Trying to do what?" "Move forward, by asking me to waive $42,680 owed to Iris." A woman across the table looked up. Mom's cheeks flushed. "Must you say numbers at dinner? Must you bring debt waivers to dessert?" Wesley covered his mouth, but I saw the almost smile. Mom leaned closer. "This is Maeve's weekend. I am asking you not to poison it with old anger." That document was signed 2 days ago. Old anger, new paper, same problem. "Elena, no." The word was not loud, but it was clean. Mom took the agreement back like it had burned her. That night at the rental cabin, Iris asked if she had done something wrong by saying Wesley was her dad. "No," I said. Grandma looked mad. Grandma has feelings she needs to manage. Iris frowned. Adults say kids need to manage feelings. Adults need it more. She smiled a little. Wesley sat on the edge of the bed and handed her the repaired flower basket we had brought for practice. He had reinforced the handle with ribbon and a tiny strip of wood inside so it would not bend. "Emergency engineering," he said. Iris inspected it seriously. "Strong now?" "Yes," she looked up at him. "If Trent asks me for a picture, do I say no thank you?" "You can say that," I said. "Or you can come to me, or to Wesley, or Aunt Maeve. You do not have to be polite when your body says no." She nodded, then she practiced. "No thank you," clear, steady, hard-earned. On the wedding morning, Pineglass Lodge smelled like roses, coffee, hairspray, and wet pine. The bridesmaids got ready upstairs. Iris sat on a bench near the window, swinging her feet, wearing her flower girl dress and repeating her steps under her breath. "Walk slow, smile if I want, petals, then sit by Mom." Wesley knelt in front of her. "And if the basket breaks?" She held it up. "Fine, Dad." He pressed one hand to his chest dramatically. "Good plan." I watched them from the doorway and felt the old grief move through me, not as sharp now, more like weather over a healed break. Trent should have been there for first words, for therapy wins, for broken baskets and school forms, for the thousand small chances fatherhood gives a man to become better. He missed them, and Wesley did not take them. He received them after they had been abandoned. Maeve entered in her robe, hair half-pinned, eyes already shiny. "Iris, you look perfect." Iris held out a folded page. "For you." Maeve opened it. It was a practice copy of the wedding program Iris had helped design on my laptop. She had chosen the small wildflower border and typed the names one letter at a time, with Wesley helping her use the keyboard shortcuts. Her name was at the bottom in tiny print. "Program border by Iris Marchquin." Maeve looked at it and burst into tears. Iris looked alarmed. "Happy sad?" Maeve nodded hard. "So happy sad." She hugged Iris gently, then she looked at me. "Thank you for bringing her through this weekend." "She brought herself." Maeve looked down at the program. "I am going to say something at the reception." "Maeve, no, I need to." I did not know whether to trust that. Weddings make people brave for 15 minutes. Families usually return to pattern by dessert. Still, I hoped. The ceremony began at 4. Guests sat in white chairs facing the lake. Pine trees framed the aisle. The rose arch trembled slightly in the breeze. Music played from hidden speakers. I sat in the front family row with Wesley beside me and the blue binder tucked under my chair in a canvas tote, because some women carry lipstick to weddings and some carry 9 years of proof. Trent and Aubrey sat 3 rows behind us on the groom's side. I did not turn around, but I felt them anyway. When it was time, Iris stood at the top of the aisle. For 1 second, I saw the toddler on the kitchen floor, hands over her ears, trapped inside a body full of words she could not release. Then I saw my 9-year-old daughter lift her chin, step forward, and scatter petals with serious attention. People smiled. Maeve cried. Wesley breathed in beside me like he was trying not to cry too loudly. Iris reached the front, turned the wrong direction for half a second, corrected herself, and came to our row. Wesley made space for her between us. She tucked under his arm like that spot had always been reserved. The ceremony was beautiful. I wish I could say I did not think of Trent during it, but I did. Not because I wanted him. Because sometimes the presence of the person who caused the wound makes you aware of how much scar tissue you have built. After the ceremony, while guests moved toward cocktail hour, Iris went with Maeve for flower girl photos. Wesley and I waited near the rose arch. I was checking my phone for messages from the coordinator when I heard Trent's voice. "Well, look at that. The replacement family made it through the ceremony." Wesley turned first. "Trent," I said. Aubrey stood beside him, holding a glass of champagne. Trent looked at Wesley. "Does she pay you by the hour, or did you get promoted?" Wesley's face remained calm. "No," that was all he said. Trent smiled at me. "Still dragging that kid around. No man is going to build a life around another man's baggage. There are sentences that should knock the wind out of you." That one did not. Maybe because I had heard some version of it before. Maybe because the man beside me had already proven it false so many times that the words arrived dead. Before I could answer, Iris ran toward us from the photo area. Her basket handle had snapped despite the reinforcement. Petals spilled behind her. She looked frustrated, not devastated. That itself was progress. She ran past Trent without slowing. "Dad, my basket broke." Wesley dropped to one knee immediately. "Let me see." He took the basket gently, inspected the handle, and said, "Repairable, very repairable." Iris nodded, relieved. Trent stood still. Aubrey stared at Iris like the podcast episode had just changed format. Several guests had heard. Colin's mother, one of Maeve's bridesmaids, the photographer, and my mother, of course, who appeared at the edge of the walkway with her face pale and tight. Trent recovered with a laugh. "Kids get confused." I looked at him. "No, adults do." Wesley fixed the basket with floral wire from his pocket because he had put some there that morning just in case. He handed it back to Iris. "Strong now," he said. She tested it. Strong now. Then she looked at Trent, not afraid exactly, but curious in the way children are when an adult has made himself smaller than expected. Trent said, "Iris, you remember me." She looked at him for a long second. Then she said, "I know you." That was worse than no. He felt it, and so did everyone else. Mom stepped forward. "Why don't we go inside? It is almost time for dinner." I picked up my tote bag. Good idea. Dinner was held in the lodge dining room under strings of warm lights. Long wooden tables were lined with wildflowers, candles, and printed programs. Iris sat between me and Wesley near the front. Trent and Aubrey were across the room with the groom's extended friends. That should have been the end of it. It was not. Halfway through salad, a server brought me a folded note. No name on the outside. Inside, in Trent's handwriting, sign the reset agreement tonight. I will drop the arrears fight, and we can all move on. If you embarrass me, I will tell everyone you alienated my kid for money. I looked across the room. Trent lifted his glass slightly. There are men who mistake patience for fear, because they have never seen a woman choose timing. I folded the note, placed it in my purse, and continued eating. Wesley saw, "You okay?" he asked quietly. "No, what do you need?" "Sit with Iris during speeches." Always, that was all. After dinner, the toasts began. Colin's best man told a story about a canoe trip. Maeve's friend cried through a speech about nursing school. Dad gave a short toast about love being patient, and I watched Mom dab her eyes as if patience were something she had ever practiced when I needed her to. Then Maeve stood. She held the microphone with both hands. Her dress shimmered under the warm lights. She looked nervous, not bridal nervous, but something more honest. "I want to thank everyone for being here," she said, "especially the people who helped make today beautiful in ways you may not see." My shoulders tightened. Maeve looked at our table. "My niece Iris helped design the border on the wedding programs." People turned toward Iris. Iris froze for 1 second. Wesley's hand rested lightly near hers, not touching until she moved toward him. Maeve continued. "Some of you may know Iris has worked very hard for her words. Today she walked down the aisle, handed me the sweetest drawing this morning, and made these programs prettier than anything I could have bought." Applause started gently. Iris looked down, smiling. "And Wesley," Maeve said, voice catching, "thank you for being the kind of dad who carries floral wire in his pocket because he knows a basket might break." The room laughed softly. Wesley looked stunned. I looked at Maeve. She looked back, tears in her eyes. Then she said, "Families are not always the people who claim the title first. Sometimes they are the people who stay long enough to earn it." Silence, not full but charged. Across the room, Trent stood. "That's a cute speech," he said, loudly enough that heads turned. Aubrey grabbed his sleeve. He shook her off. "But maybe let's not pretend biology doesn't matter just because some people make it impossible for fathers to be involved." The room went still. Maeve lowered the microphone. Colin started to stand, but Maeve touched his arm. My mother whispered, "Trent, please." He looked at me. "Alina has spent years poisoning my daughter against me. Now everyone thinks the therapist is her dad because she needed a little extra help talking. Great. Congratulations. Very inspirational." I stood, slowly. Not because I wanted drama, but because some lies are aimed at children, and silence becomes participation. "Iris," I said softly, "go with Aunt Maeve and W. Wesley for a minute." Iris looked at me. Am I in trouble? My heart cracked. "No, baby, you are the truth. This is adult cleanup." Wesley took her hand and moved with Maeve toward the side hallway. Iris went willingly because he was with her. That alone said more than anything I could have said. When she was gone, I reached under my chair and lifted the blue binder onto the table. The sound of it landing was not loud, but people noticed. Trent laughed. "Of course, the binder." "Yes," I said, "the binder." Mom stood. "Alina, do not do this at your sister's wedding." I looked at Maeve. She had stopped near the hallway, Iris safely behind Wesley, and she nodded once. Not happily, but clearly. I turned back to Trent. You said I made it impossible for you to be involved. He smirked, did you not? I opened the first section. Parenting plan, signed by you, every other weekend visitation. You attended 4 full weekends in the first year after the order, then missed 31 of the next 36 scheduled visits. Trent's smile thinned. Work travel. I opened the next section. Your emails, April 7th. I cannot take her this weekend because she gets too upset and I don't know what to do with the speech thing. May 12th. Don't send the picture cards. I am not running a therapy center. August 3rd. Maybe she should stay with you until she is normal enough for regular weekends. A woman at the next table gasped. Aubrey stared at Trent. He said those were private. No, I said, those were parenting communications. Mom whispered, enough, I continued. Child support arrears and unreimbursed therapy and medical costs. Total, as of this month, $42,680. Trent's face reddened. This is about money. Yes, I said, money you owed a child while calling her baggage. I removed the folded note from my purse and held it up. Tonight, during my sister's wedding dinner, you sent me this note telling me to sign a reset agreement, or you would tell everyone I alienated Iris for money. I unfolded it. Would you like me to read it? He stepped forward. Do not. Then sit down. For once, he did. Not because I was loud, but because the room was no longer his. Aubrey stood slowly. What reset agreement? I looked at her. You don't know, she shook her head. I believed her, not fully enough. I pulled out the document and placed it on the table nearest her. He wanted me to waive the arrears and allow use of Iris's name and image in public and charitable contexts. I assume that connects to Gatherwell families. Aubrey's face went white. Trent snapped, do not bring her into this. You brought my daughter into it. Colin's mother stood near the back. Is this why you asked the photographer to get pictures of you with the flower girl? The photographer looked trapped, then nodded slightly. Trent glared at her. Aubrey turned to him. Trent, he said nothing. I looked around the room. I did not plan to do this tonight. I came with records because my daughter has been lied about before. I hoped I would not need them. But I will not let a man who walked out of therapy, ignored court orders, and called my child baggage stand in a wedding reception and claim he was kept from fatherhood. Dad stood then. My father, who had been quiet through most of my life when Mom's version was easier. Trent, he said, voice unsteady, I remember you leaving. Mom looked at him sharply. He did not stop. I remember Alina coming over with Iris after therapy, exhausted. I remember the check she paid when you did not. I remember Wesley at school events. I have not said enough. That is on me. But I will not sit here and pretend I do not know who showed up. My throat tightened. Mom looked down at her napkin. That was the first crack in her performance. Trent pushed his chair back. This is insane. Maeve stepped forward with the microphone still in her hand. No, she said. Insane is calling a child baggage at my wedding and then being surprised the room chooses the child. The room was silent. Then Colin stood beside her. Trent, you should leave. Trent looked around as if waiting for another man to rescue him from consequence. No one moved. Aubrey picked up her purse. I am leaving, she said, alone. She looked at me, then toward the hallway where Iris had gone. I am sorry, she said quietly. Then she walked out. Trent followed a minute later, not because he chose humility, but because every room has a moment when the lie runs out of oxygen. After he left, nobody knew what to do. That is the part people do not show in stories. Exposure is not followed immediately by triumph. It is followed by plates of half-eaten cake, awkward guests, someone coughing, a bridesmaid crying in the bathroom, and a 9-year-old child asking if the music can come back on. Maeve took the microphone again. I am sorry, she said, voice shaking. I am sorry that happened here, but I am not sorry the truth was told. So if everyone could please take a breath, hug someone safe, and then dance, I would really appreciate it because I paid for this band, and I am not letting Trent Archer ruin the whole night." People laughed, not loudly at first, then more. The band started playing a soft song. Colin kissed Maeve's forehead. Wesley brought Iris back when the room settled. She looked at me carefully. "Adult cleanup done, for now. Did I do bad?" "No." "Did Trent leave?" "Yes." She thought about that. "Okay." Then she held up the basket. "It is still strong." Wesley smiled. "Very strong." Later that night, Maeve danced with Iris to a song from a movie they both loved. Wesley stood beside me near the edge of the dance floor. "You okay?" he asked. "No," he nodded. "Me neither." I leaned into him carefully. "You were named in a wedding toast." "That was terrifying. You survived." "Barely," I laughed. Across the room, Dad approached. He looked older under the string lights. "Elena," he said, "I am sorry." I waited. He swallowed. "For staying quiet too many times. For thinking your mother keeping peace was the same as protecting you. For letting Trent be treated like a guest when Iris deserved safety." Mom stood behind him, pale and stiff. She did not speak. Maybe she could not. Maybe she was still deciding whether truth looked better from another angle. I looked at Dad. "Thank you." It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was a receipt for the first real apology. Mom came to me near the end of the night, while guests were packing favors and Maeve was changing into her exit dress. "I did not know he would say that," she said. "I believe you." Her shoulders loosened slightly. Then I added, "But you knew enough." She looked wounded. There it was again, the old reflex. My truth making her feel accused because it accurately described what happened. "I wanted your sister's wedding to be peaceful. You asked Iris to share space with the man who abandoned her, so you could feel peaceful." Mom's eyes filled. "That is not fair." No, it was not. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, no soft sentence arrived to save her. The next Monday, Priya filed the note, the reset agreement, and the updated arrears record with the court as part of our enforcement case. There was no dramatic gavel. No judge reading Trent for filth in a crowded room. Real life is slower than that, but the documents mattered. Trent withdrew his request to use Iris's image in Aubrey's media project after Aubrey cut him out of the launch entirely. She also sent Priya a short statement confirming Trent had represented himself as rebuilding an active father-daughter relationship, which she now understood was false. I did not know whether she did it from guilt, anger, or brand protection. It did not matter. Paper is paper. Maeve came over the week after the wedding with leftover cake in a plastic container and no excuse. "I should have uninvited him," she said. "Yes," she nodded. "I was scared of making drama." "I know. I let you carry it until it exploded." "Yes," she cried, and I let her. Then she said, "I am proud of Iris." "Me too," and Wesley, "Me too," and you. That one took longer to answer. Because the responsible daughter often hears praise only after the emergency proves she was necessary. Still, I believed Maeve meant it. "Thank you," I said. She handed me the cake. "It is dry now." "That feels symbolic." We laughed. "My relationship with Mom is quieter now." Not repaired, quieter. She has started asking before inviting people into shared spaces. She called once to say she had found an old photo of Iris at 3 and realized Wesley was in the background at the school picnic, holding a paper plate while Trent was nowhere in the album. "I did not notice then," she said. "I did, I know." That was not enough, but it was something. Wesley never asked Iris to keep calling him Dad after the wedding. That is one of the reasons she kept doing it. He knew names are gifts, not trophies. Some nights she calls him Dad. Some nights, when she is tired or joking, she calls him Wheeze. Once she called him emergency engineering, and he wore that like a medal for 3 days. The flower basket sits on a shelf in her room now, repaired handle and all. She keeps paper flowers in it, along with the wedding program she helped design. At the bottom, in tiny print, are the words she typed with such care. Program Border by Iris Marchquin. That hyphen came later. Not because Wesley demanded it, but because one day Iris asked whether her school name could match the house where people answered when she called. We handled it properly. Forms, consent where needed, court review. Trent objected at first, then withdrew when Priya reminded his attorney that support enforcement and his messages could be discussed in the same hearing. The legal name Cha. Ng took months, worth it. The first time Iris wrote Iris Marchquin on a school art project, she stared at it for a long time. "Looks balanced," she said. I cried in the car after drop-off. Not because a name fixes abandonment, but because sometimes a child gets to choose a word that fits better than the one she inherited. As for Trent, he remains complicated in the way disappointing people often do after exposure. He pays more regularly now. He attends supervised visits inconsistently but better than before. He has not earned trust. He may never, but Iris no longer asks why he does not call. That grief has changed shape. It is still there sometimes, but it is no longer waiting at the window. He showed up when Iris could only say one word. He showed up when she said none. He showed up when a basket broke at a wedding, and the wrong man was watching. That is what fatherhood became in our house. Not biology denied, not history erased, a record built by presence. My ex said no man would raise my child. Then the flower girl called another man dad. He thought the word would humiliate him. It did not, it told the truth. That is my story. If you have ever watched someone abandon a responsibility and then resent the person who carried it, tell me what you would have done. Would you have stayed quiet, opened the binder, or let the child speak the name she knew was true? Share this with someone who needs permission to stop protecting the person who left. Before you go, tell me your name and the city you are watching from. I want to know where this story found you. I will see you in the next one.